I don't know if I care about doing formal introductions anymore like I used to do. But
That's fine. I don't
so
anyway.
I kind of have an idea of your perspective. Um for people listening, we're going to have a conversation about gender. It's going to be fun. I don't have like a full like scope of what your opinions are. I kind of just have an idea on some things. So I don't want to assume anything that you believe just because of your maybe political leaning
Yeah,
and vice versa.
good. Good.
So
Yeah, you can't put me in a box. Okay.
oh boy, it's starting it off great. Um okay, so here's a question to kind of probe the air a little bit. How many genders are there in your perspective?
You know, that's a question. I'm going to say not two. I'll say that.
Not two.
I'm going to
Okay.
say that just to spice it up. I don't think I think that gender is a social construct, right? So I think gender is different from sex, separate from sex.
Right.
And so I think that obviously if it's separate and sex itself is kind of a bimodal distribution, but also not completely just, two things. It's
What do you
obvious.
mean by a bimodal distribution?
There's like slight variation, right? Where you can have XY chromosomes, but not fully be one gender, right? Like there's examples of people who have chromosomes that would traditionally place them in a man or woman category, right?
Mhm.
But they can surprisingly get pregnant or something like that because their gonads never developed correctly or something weird like that. And there are like documented. I was listening to something last night about this where there was like they brought up a few documented examples of this. But just that point being right, like yes, there are it's a it's a bimodal distribution, meaning there's like two main groups that most people kind of fit under, but there are definitely things that kind of branch out like any statistical distribution, right?
Yeah, so like are you
There's always going to be
referencing
fringe cases, is what I'm saying. There's not
like intersex cases and stuff like that?
exactly.
Yeah, I think that for the most part, my perspective is that for 99% or higher of people, your gender will reflect your biological sex just
Your
because of
gender will.
how yeah, your gender will reflect your sex for 99% of people.
We should
But
probably do a definition here and
yeah, so
say what gender is, in your opinion.
okay, so I would say gender is kind of like how you act out in the world in some kind of way. Oh, sorry, there's a fly on my screen right now. Um, it's in part how you act in the world, but it's I would say that I do agree that it is at least partially socially constructed in the sense of that our society or every society kind of puts people into a particular bucket based on their sex. But I don't think that it's something that kind of is blown out of nowhere. Like I think that gender roles are based on just the biological fact of sex and gender being tightly knit. And so when you have someone, because I think like throughout all of history, we've had men and we've had women, and men and women have always acted and done different things in society. And I think that it's far-fetched to say that we've all just kind of forced gender roles forever. And but yeah, I sex is a biological um identification of male and female, and gender is more so how that's acted out in the world, I would say.
Okay, so you do, yeah, you do say there's a distinction.
Oh, for sure.
So would you say there's more than two?
No, I would say that there's only male and there's only female as genders, and anything else is a hmm, how would I define that?
You would say perversion.
I don't know if I would say it was a perversion. I just don't think that it's scientifically accurate to say like they thems, for example. It's just not a thing. It's not real as far as science understands it.
Interesting. That's actually not how science would understand it, but that's fine. Because yeah, I mean you admit that it's separate from sex, right? So why wouldn't you say that there could be a distribution because it's human behavior, right?
A
It's not
distribution as in like
it's not
fluidity of gender, is that what you're saying?
I don't know if fluidity is the right word. Fluidity implies change. I think that someone could be a they them, as you say, non-binary, where they basically they don't, because in my opinion, you're very right when you say that it's how people act out in the world, right? Or it's how they perceive themselves and want to live in society. So I would say someone who identifies as non-binary, aka they them, um, that's someone who says, "Hey, I don't identify with the social roles that people, the buckets, as you said earlier, that people want to place on man and woman, um, like traditional gender roles." Um, so basically, someone saying, "Screw this! I don't want to live in those buckets. You can't tell me which bucket to be in. I want to live my life separately. I want to do whatever I want." And that's from my friends who are non-binary. That would be absolutely how they would describe themselves. I think it's just no, screw this. Don't refer to me as man or woman. Don't treat me differently based on what bucket you think I'm in, and
Okay.
don't expect me to act a certain way based on what bucket you're assuming I'm in because I have titties or whatever. Um, I'm trying to make your podcast get get claimed.
Uh, nice. Um,
No ads for you,
no,
baby.
because like my personal, I don't think I would get ads anyways. This
Yeah, I wouldn't
based
get
on my
I
history
I wouldn't
already.
get ads for sure. No,
Uh, so my perspective is like I don't think there's anything wrong with a feminine male or a masculine female, and I don't think that you being, leaning towards one or the other means anything. Like, I do agree with you that um, people are very different and they all are very unique and complicated, but I don't think that that necessarily pulls you outside of biology. So, um,
but you've already said that it isn't, right? It's how you act. It's not like
well,
I
I mean,
think people
well,
act
the point
based
that
on
I'm making is that sex is a direct, or gender is a direct reflection of your sex 99% of the time.
well, I need to see a stat. But either way, even if that's true, right?
Okay.
Even if it is 99% of the time, what do you do with 1% of people? Do you tell them, hey, you're the way you want to live is not okay? You know what I mean?
No, not at all. Because my point of view is like you're always going to have people who are outliers. You're always going to have people that don't quite fit into whatever mold society has for any definition of anything.
Yeah.
So that just because somebody is different or doesn't fit into a specific place or definition doesn't mean that they are exhumed from rights or compassion or any of those things. I have a lot of sympathy for people who are born intersex or have these very rare and challenging issues. And it's
What
not
about someone?
something.
What
Hmm.
about someone who's not necessarily intersex, but somebody who just doesn't want to live the gender binary, right? Maybe they very medically look like a man, right? You would basically assume if you didn't know anything about this person, this is a man, and you were a doctor, you did an examination, definitely a man. But this person says, no, screw that. I don't want to live within this construct, this gender binary that you expect me to live in. What would you say to that person? Because you're saying you have sympathy for people who are born a certain way, but maybe they don't want sympathy, right? Maybe this person says, no, I don't need you to feel bad for me. I just want you to stop trying to say that I should be a certain way, right? Because that's what it is. It's not them saying I don't have a dick. No, that obviously they know that it always cracks me up when people are like, science is real. Obviously, you're either a man or a woman. It's like, yes, no, like trans people know that they were born with a dick. That's why they don't like it, right? Like they're very aware that their body is fighting back about what their brain is telling them they want. That's why they go through the trouble of doing hormone replacements and getting surgeries and basically doing everything possible to make themselves feel like they see themselves.
Hmm.
So I guess what would you say to not necessarily a trans person, but a non-binary person who says, no, screw that. Don't tell me to live in these boxes. I don't want you. I don't care if you have sympathy for me. I don't want you to feel bad for me. Just stop telling me to live a certain way because of what I was born with between my legs, basically.
Um, Again, like the most that I can say is that there are feminine men and there are masculine women, and you don't have to do any specific thing based on your gender. But I don't think that gender is capable to be non-binary. I think gender is binary.
So what does that mean to you then? If you're saying you don't, because we've agreed that gender itself is basically the social construct, right?
I don't
And
think that gender itself is a social construct. I think that it's partially socially constructed in the sense of every society has some ideas of how men should act and how women should act. For example, uh, a lot of ancient history, Romans and Greeks wore, like men wore what you would call something similar to a dress in modern day America now. And that wasn't that wasn't considered something feminine, but in our society we would consider it feminine. And so that's what I mean by it's partially socially constructed. But whether the roles, or not necessarily all the roles, but the places that men fall into in society are the same across history.
um, okay, but yeah, I guess you still have this question, right? Like you believe there's specific roles that are more masculine, more feminine, right?
Sure.
And what do you do with someone who says, I don't want you to tell me which roles are better for me. I don't want you to tell me which roles I should be doing. I mean, I guess you could still tell those people, but what they're saying is you kind of be an asshole. But this person still has this perspective like, yeah, that's not working for me. That's not what I want. Uh, and I guess what do you do for that? What do you say to that person if they're essentially saying, I'm rejecting those rules, right? I feel like this is the case with non-binary people because that's why I keep bringing this up because to me that makes a lot of sense to say, no, I'm rejecting these rules. I don't think that either of them really fit me well. I want to, some days I want to be doing feminine things, some days I want to do masculine things, and that's just my choice. I don't want people to look at me and treat me as if I need to be let's say for the manly role, I'm assuming you're kind of thinking things like protector and provider, things like that, where it's like, you know what I mean? Like the traditional masculine things that all the alpha males want you to do, right? Um,
I don't think you need to fit into to anything like that. I think if you want to be a, you know, a hairdresser as a man, and you go do that. I don't care. It doesn't bother me at all. I don't think that those things are I don't think those things are particularly masculine or feminine, like as far as like your career type. Well, they are to an extent from a psychological standpoint, as far as like what a man is more what a man has a proclivity to want to do career wise versus what a woman wants to do career wise. There is differences there, but I don't know that that necessarily puts them into a specific masculine or feminine role in society.
so you're saying people, genders or sexes, have a proclivity to be more like masculine or feminine, I guess, but you don't think that those roles exist at the same time? I'm confused.
No, I'm saying that the jobs that men pick,
Yeah, men in
it's
general pick.
yeah, like they're more likely to pick. So
Yeah.
men are more likely to do construction work. Men are more likely to do any of the sciences, STEM field, right?
Mhm.
Those are mostly men dominated fields because men have more interest in that. And that's because men, they're by their gender, um, that's the proclivity that they have that from biology, from birth.
So yeah, I think you could definitely,
But
obviously, like men are going to gravitate more towards physical stuff that's especially labor intensive. That's very physically challenging, since men in general are stronger. Men in general are, more likely to be doing construction. Uh, but then, I mean, you still have this question, right? Even if there is this general gravity towards certain roles, because I think there's obvious also the, like, how much of that is social construct, right? Like we see more women in STEM now because it's more common and it's more accepted for women to be in STEM, right? Some of the best engineers I know are women. Actually, I would say almost most of them. I know a lot of female engineers. Um, but
so you think that there's more women in STEM now because it's now more socially accepted and it has nothing to do with interest?
I don't know if I would say nothing to do with interest, maybe, but I'm saying there's a large component, and I would obviously need to read some studies on it. I would say that we probably don't have like a clean, non-muddy way to know this yet, because it was so frowned upon for women to even work outside the home for a very long time, right? So, and it takes generations to change society, right? It's not just an instant overnight thing where suddenly every woman's going to be in STEM because they're allowed to have a bank account and leave the home. You know what I mean? Like it's not an instant thing. And I also think that there's something to be said for, representation in certain roles. Like if you've never seen a female engineer, you're probably going to assume, hey, maybe I'm not supposed to be an engineer, or maybe I'm not going to be good at it. And yeah, I think there's a lot to be said for having visible roles makes it more likely that you'll want to do something, or you'll at least feel like you have the option, especially as a kid, right? So, I mean, obviously we see more women in STEM now than we did 60 years ago, right? uh, Way more. I have, I mean, there's definitely still a lot of men in my engineering classes, but it's much more common that women will get into it now. So I guess there's obviously a social component, is what I'm saying. Um, but I'm not saying there's no biological component for, maybe men are more likely to want to do these type of linear roles, you know.
Mhm.
But yeah, I guess that all that aside, right? There's obviously biological and social components to these things. So I guess my point is, regardless of the fact that there's probably gravity towards certain roles based on biology and society, right? Like I think that's probably an obvious understanding. That's why we've had roles in society. That's why humans evolved a certain way. Like, but regardless of the fact that there's a biological component, there's also the social component.
Mhm.
And if someone doesn't want to live in the binary, who are you to say no, right? Because I mean, you basically said, oh, it's fine, they can live however they want. But why do you insist upon saying, well, you can live outside the binary, but I'm still going to say your gender is man? Because I mean, what's the point then, right? Because what's the
Because
point of putting them in the bucket if they said they don't want to be in the bucket? Why
the
do you
gender, are
care?
you
Why
talking
do
about
you care if they're in the
the
bucket?
gender bucket in general?
Yeah,
I think that truth matters, and
but it doesn't sound true, right? It
what
doesn't
doesn't
sound.
sound true that 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 genders exist and they have certain
No, I'm saying
proclivities.
if they, you're saying proclivities, but this specific person, proclivities as a in general, right? But this specific person, regardless of if they have any biological leaning to be something, they're clearly not feeling it, right? So like, regardless of if you think they have proclivity, they're telling you, no, I'm not gonna do that. I don't feel
Well,
like I
again,
don't want to
this
do
is
that.
a generality. This isn't every single man and every single
I
woman
know.
has this ideal.
Right. So
And I
that's my
never said,
exact point
"Oh,
though.
yeah, you have to do this job if you're a man." I'm just acknowledging the fact that you are one.
Right. But that's a sex thing, right? You're taking the word gender and then you're immediately imposing the sex onto it.
The Again, for 99% of people, their sex matches their gender.
And we're not talking about the 99% though. Like I keep saying, I'm talking about a specific person, right? So like aside, leave the generality out of it. You're a human. You're talking to another fellow human, right?
Mhm.
And this person, this human is saying, yo, I'm non-binary. I don't fit in these boxes. They are not the 99%. This person is telling you they're living as if they're not the 99%. What do you say to them? How do you treat them? What's your perspective on that person?
Well, it depends because in our society, I think there's a lot of reasons why someone might identify as non-binary, and it may have nothing to do with them being in that 1%.
So what do you mean?
I think for a lot of young girls specifically, there's a social contagion aspect to identifying as the opposite sex or the opposite gender or uh, they, them, or whatever it is that you identify as.
Why do you think
Um,
that is?
why do I think that it's affecting women, or why do I think that women are being affected in a social contagion way?
Why do you think it's affecting women?
Like affecting women more?
If that's what your premise is, yeah, sure.
I don't, I wouldn't say that I know all the ins and outs of that, but women are different than men, and women are generally more influenced socially. Um,
I'm just
they,
I'm gonna hold back, but I'm pushing back at what you just said mentally right now.
okay. And like a lot of times you're seeing groups of young girls who are identifying as trans, and then it's not just them, it's like them and their best friend and then their best friend's friend. And so the actual like percent chance of that happening is basically zero. So for me to validate that as being like an actual 1% case seems extremely unlikely.
So basically, you're saying because you believe there's a social contagion aspect to this, especially with young people, especially with young women, is what you think.
Mhm.
You you would not you would want not want to even consider valid. You would just say, all right, the chances of this happening are low.
No, no,
This person needs to be.
you're assuming. I think that
I'm
our
stealing.
society has a lot of reasons why someone might identify as the opposite gender, other than the fact that they actually feel that way.
So do you
And
okay, give me a case of a legitimate case then?
of someone who is not
Yeah,
actually, is that what you're saying?
the percent of people, the small percent that you would say legitimately could identify that way, or would you not say that exists?
Some Someone who is born intersex, for example, would have some. some issues when they were born, and so their hormones are not quite how they should be, and there can be a lot of variation of complications when it comes to that. So those individuals, which are very uncommon, could very well develop gender dysmorphia, because gender dysmorphia is a real thing. And my point is that I don't think gender dysmorphia is as common as we're seeing it now. I think that a lot of the reasons why, especially young kids, are identifying it as it is because there is a social push to do so from parents and schools. There is a there is some social points that you gain by being different. Um, if you're an unpopular kid and then you decide to be non-binary, then you automatically are special in some way without actually having to work for it. And that that makes it very tempting for young people to identify as something other than what they were born as.
So this is ransom. He's annoying. Um,
Hello.
that. Um, hmm. I'm not sure. I'm not sure that that exactly answered my question. I guess so. I'm not denying that there's probably some social contagion aspect, right? And I think it would be obvious to say that, especially amongst young people, right? That there is that. Um, so I'm not denying that that's a thing, but I also think that your view of you can only identify as non-binary, which I are you saying that now? But you can only identify as that if you're intersex, is your perspective?
You can identify whatever you want all the time because it's a free country. I can't do anything about it.
No, I mean, yeah, sure. But I'm saying what you
It doesn't
believe
mean I
is
believe you.
valid. What you would say is valid, right? Because that's what the discussion is.
It's very, very difficult because
There we go.
I don't think that I'm educated enough on just intersex in general to say exactly, how that affects um, their day-to-day life.
Yeah.
I know there are some cases where I know that, especially back in the day, whenever they would have an intersex, they would look at their chromosome, they would say, okay, this one is technically a female, so we will remove the male genitalia and let them live their life as a female and never say anything. And some of these people, it ends up being fine. And then some of these people, when I say fine, I mean they socialize normally, they live their life as a woman, and it doesn't seem to have any sort of um, long-term negative effects. But then there's other cases where those people are very different from their typical outward appearance, and they don't fit into, or sometimes they don't fit into either box the way that they
Yeah.
normally would if they were female or male. And so there's even inside of being intersex, which is a very low percentage. There's a certain percentage of those people who end up living out their lives normally, and then there's a certain amount of those people who um, go to be trans when they're older. There's a lot of variation in those people. Some of them have dysmorphia, some of them don't. And yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, I don't even remember what I asked you, honestly. So I'm not sure if that answered the question. But huh. Yeah, so we're talking about you're basically insisting that you need to have an obvious physical variation for you to consider that person's experience valid, right?
um no.
So so you would say that
everyone's
vanity.
quote unquote experience is valid to them because the worst thing that you've ever gone through is the worst thing that you've gone through. Everyone has their own experiences. I can't speak to those things, but to say that you're, say, um gender dysmorphic, but it's something that's something that you have to really, 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 really look into before you like put, whatever gender pronouns on your bio on Instagram. So it's not like it's not like this easy thing to figure out. And then you look at
I
uh
agree. It's not easy.
you look at kids that are like say pre-pubescent, and I believe it's 60 to 90% of the ones that have dysmorphia develop normally, and they normalize, I guess, and no longer have dysmorphia by the time they get through puberty. And so um, that already tells you that the number is quite low for people who are dysmorphic later in life and after puberty. Now the problem with this idea that we should just listen to what everything our kid says and then immediately put them on hormone blockers and then take them down this road is like that's just scientifically the wrong answer, because for 60 to 90% of those people, again, those people are going to turn out normal, and then that would have been a huge mistake.
Where are you
The
getting that 69% number?
um I have a I have a statistic from a sexologist. I don't have it on online, but
It's okay. We can look at it later. So
I mean,
I
it's
feel
a
like they
fairly well-known stat that most kids that have dysmorphia do uh normalize after puberty.
so I feel like we're kind of twisting the discussion a little bit here, right? So I didn't ask anything about children. Uh I'm just saying humans,
Well,
right?
we're talking about gender and how you develop as a person. It's
Right.
important to bring in adolescence.
Sure. But I think it almost muddies the waters, right? Because there's obviously a concern for children's well-being that and there's obviously questions about how the mind develops and how the body develops that there's obviously a lot of gray for how someone's going to change as they get older. And I'm talking about the lived experience of someone who's an adult right now, mostly, right?
Okay.
So,
Yeah, I'm not trying to put you into a bucket of like, I know you want kids to have gender assignment surgery when they're 5.
yeah, no,
I'm not
uh,
trying to throw you into any bucket. I'm
good.
it's just part of the conversation. So
Yeah.
I guess we have to clarify at any point,
That's
like
what I'm
what
doing.
age you're talking about.
That's exactly what I'm doing. So
Okay.
I'm yeah. Let's just keep it to adults, right? So I have quite a few number of friends who are trans and who I mean I live in Portland, so of course I do.
I
But
mean, I'm on the outskirts of LA, but I don't really know any.
yeah. Well, I
I
think
mean, I
I do
know
think a
I
lot of
know
it
of
is the
of
type of I think we have different social circles too, right? Like
for sure,
I don't go to
because
church
you're
anymore.
you're like very Christian, so
Yeah. Um
dude, I don't go
yeah,
to
but
church.
even when I lived in LA actually, I think last time we had a conversation I brought up um I was living with two lesbians and one of them decided to transition while I was living with them. This was when I
Hmm.
lived in Long Beach.
Yeah, I
Um
remember.
and that was my first ever introduction to a trans person. This was probably in like 2014, 2015. I don't know, quite a
Hmm.
while ago.
Hmm.
Um, since then, this person has gone on to get uh, surgeries, um, taken lots of hormones, and frankly, would be indistinguishable from a man if you didn't like look at their surgery marks, right?
Hmm.
In my opinion, if you just saw this person walking down the street, you would not even bat your eye. If you saw them in the bathroom, you wouldn't bat your eye.
Hmm.
Uh, and not only has this happened, but this person's gone on to uh, get married, has kids, and is living in like Kentucky or some shit. I don't even know where they're at anymore. Um, but not in an area where you would traditionally think that people would be very friendly to trans people. Um, and they're living life in the man bucket, right? Even though they were born as a woman. And I think they're doing great. You know what I mean? So like, um, what what is your reason for saying that that's not okay
Um, well,
as an adult, right? We're talking about an adult here.
there's definitely more than one reason.
So you will just get you do think that's not okay.
I have always like, listen, I don't even want women to do breast surgeries. Like, I'm not I'm not really in the boat of do whatever makes you feel good about yourself for
Well,
any
you have
reason.
so many tattoos. That's not good for you.
I mean, it's actually not proven that it's not good for you, but if it isn't, then I've already done it. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, that's people make this argument a lot, where I'll say, yeah, I don't really support like BBLs and stuff like that, and they're like, oh, but you have tattoos, but it's like, it's not exactly the same thing, but
Comparison.
yeah, I understand the comparison for sure. And I've always
What would you say is
said that,
different? Oh,
huh?
you're gonna tell me right now. Okay, cool.
I've always said that people should be content in who they are and how they were born and try
Yeah.
to find that acceptance for what it is. And I think that a lot of people don't ever get there. Whether that's someone who goes, all the way to the other side of like completely changing their gender, or someone who, you know, gets surgeries to like cosmetic surgeries to look a certain way, or bodybuilders often have a lot of dysmorphia as well.
Yeah,
Um,
I do.
any
I'm fat.
in any person that's kind of like uncomfortable in their own skin, like I understand that it's a battle, like I understand that it's hard to um accept yourself for the way that you look, or
Mhm.
what it is, and so I understand that there's a battle there. I think that it's definitely different for people who are legitimately dysphoric, because it is you know a medical medically recognized problem. Um,
Wait, so let's just get back to the exact thing I asked, right? Like, what about what about this person is a problem for you, I guess?
I think that it's a like this is a very this might sound like a simple gotcha question, but how is it that a man knows what it's like to feel like a woman if he's never been one?
Wait, are you answering my question or are you just asking another question?
I'm asking you a question because this is one of the reasons why I don't think that this idea makes sense. This is why, dysmorphia has been considered a mental illness for a lot of its history until very recently.
So you're okay, just to be really clear. So this person's living this life. They've gone through the trouble of getting surgeries, changing their entire lifestyle basically from the social experience that a woman is supposed to have. Um, according to the boxes or the buckets or whatever we're
How
using
do
now.
you know what it feels like to be a woman if you've never
Well,
been one?
what is who cares what it feels like? I'm saying
What do you mean? Feelings is all that matter to them, apparently.
no, what I'm saying is so you're saying you have a problem with this person living this way, right? I mean, other than
I actually don't have a problem with anyone living any certain way.
no, I
My
mean,
biggest concern, my
I know you
biggest
think it's
concern,
legal or whatever, but that's what I mean by problem. You're
my biggest
what
concern
is
is
your
like the
concern?
mental health aspect of it. I don't think that it's healthy. I don't think that it's good for them. I think that I think they would be better off if they were trying to pursue more contentment in their life instead of making these like very life altering changes. Um,
Okay.
Nobody wants to hear that, obviously, but it goes down to that question, like how can a man believe that he should be a woman or that he feels like a woman if he's never been one? How do you make that connection? It doesn't make any sense to me. And I understand that it's like a simple like haha gotcha question. Like I'm sure a lot of conservatives have brought this up before, but it's
Well, I
still a
guess
question that's
so.
unanswered.
I can answer it for you if you want, but I'm still trying to dial in the. So you're basically, I just want to focus on this because before we move on to that, I'm saying
Mhm.
like, so I have this friend, they're living this way. You say you think that they should not do that. You personally don't think that that's good for them because you think that they should seek contentment. They should find fulfillment as they were born. But we've already kind of talked about how there's this social aspect to this, right? So like, what is the you're just saying you don't think it's healthy for them to get surgeries, you don't because like you're okay with them
Well,
living
it's definitely not healthy for anyone to get surgeries like that.
right. And I think even people who do that know that, right? Like
Yeah, there is some sort of diminishing return, or that's not the term I'm looking for, but
there's
there's some negatives to the positives that you're
there's always
gaining.
risk associated with surgeries, right? Like every surgery has a risk. So yes, if you're having more surgeries that aren't medically necessary, you're putting yourself at risk,
Right.
of course. But I guess that's not really the main thing. The main thing is the lifestyle, right? That's what I'm talking about. So even if this person hadn't been on hormone uh, and gotten surgeries, they want to live the lifestyle of the man. They want to live in the masculine role. What is the concern there? Why do you think that's a problem?
I'm not sure on that one.
You're not sure.
Or like why there would be a problem with someone just wanting to live a masculine role if they're not
You're.
a man.
I
I don't
think if
know if
you
I take issue.
stay a little more centered to your mic.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah. No, it cuts out really. It gets really way quieter on the sides.
Yeah, I'm not sure how it sounds because I can't hear
It sounds
myself, but
great when you're right in front of it.
okay.
Yeah. Um. So you're okay. So you're not sure. So I mean, to me, that's the big question, right? Like that's kind of what we're like. The other stuff is like I think there's plenty of room to have a conversation like, hey, it might be a risk you're taking by getting this surgery. And I think doctors explain this, people know this, like, and in all the cases I'm aware of, all my trans friends, they recognize that there's a risk, but they would way rather have the benefits of getting these surgeries or taking hormones or whatever because it makes them feel like it's easier to assimilate into the box that they want to be in, right? And it is. It is easier.
It's not that they're
My
trying
friend
to
Rose.
assimilate into a gender role, though. It's that they're
No,
trying
but
to
wait.
assimilate
Let
into a
me finish
sex.
this. Well, but you do agree that you've said yourself that you think there's two boxes for gender roles, basically, right? Like you said that there's outliers, but you agree that there's masculine things and feminine things, right?
Yes, there is, but that's not what they're trying to do.
Well, no, they are.
If they
They
just
are. That's
wanted
the
to
point.
live in a gender role of a man, they could do that as a woman. It wouldn't matter.
Right, but not really, right? Because
Why not?
the less you look like the perceived gender, the less likely you are to be accepted. You're not going to be able to use the men's bathroom. People are going to
Using the men's bathroom has nothing to do with being in a gender role. That has to do with sex.
how would you feel if someone forced you to use the women's bathroom and said,
I
"No,
don't know.
this is what you should be doing." Would you say this doesn't feel right?
That's not even a good argument.
No, I mean it kind of is, right? Because we're talking about what feels right to the person, to the individual.
What feels right to the individual is it varies so vastly. I mean,
I know, okay, I know the bathroom thing is a touchy subject for people like you, so we'll just ignore the bathroom thing. I'm just saying, like, being perceived a certain way plays a lot into how we live our lives, right? We do a lot of things to be perceived a certain way. You get tattoos to be perceived a certain way, or We dress a certain way, we do our hair a certain way, we grow facial hair, all these things. There's obviously a personal component because you want to look in the mirror and you want to see yourself a certain way, but a lot of it is because you want to be perceived a certain way and you want to be accepted. uh in the trans community they call it passing, right? When people don't question the gender that you're trying to be, that's
Right.
passing. So a lot of people really want that because how much easier is it to live your roles when you don't have society constantly saying, look at that weird
But is it
freak in
really
a
about
dress.
the role or is it really about the sex? Because it seems more about the sex to me. When you're saying like you want to be passing as a woman, you're talking about the look and the aesthetic of a woman. You're not talking about the gender role of a woman.
The aesthetic is, I feel like, a lot of the role though, right?
No, not necessarily.
I mean, when you see someone wearing a dress, most likely they're trying to be perceived as a woman, right? At least in
As a woman, not as a gender role of a woman.
what? Well, what's the dress for then?
A dress has nothing to do with a gender role.
What is a dress for? Why do women wear dresses then?
Say like it
Why do they like it?
because they're girls.
I mean, there's no biological component that says women wear dresses, right?
No,
It's goofy.
that's why it's not having to do with gender.
No, no, no.
It has to
Wait,
do
you
with
just said
sex.
there's no biological component to wearing a dress, right? So
That, like
the
I said,
fact,
in ancient Rome, they essentially wore dresses.
yes, exactly. But that's what I'm saying. That's the gender. That's the social part. The social part is like the part that I'm talking about.
But if they just wanted the social part, they wouldn't need boobs
Why not? You do
because that's a
perceive people
sexual part.
differently if they have boobs, right?
I mean, sure.
Okay, there you go. No, I mean, so like that's the thing. It's like in a perfect world, which I don't think we have, I think
That's
that
a shame.
anyone could do whatever they want and no one would question, why are you doing that? That's not manly. Or why are you doing that? That's not womanly. Right. Um, but because we don't live in that world, we live in this world where the binary is essentially forced upon you from birth. By I mean it's
It's not even forced upon you. It's just how biology works.
no, no, I'm talking about the social part, right?
Have
Obviously,
you
obviously, I no, no, I'm talking about the social part, right? Obviously, the binary is a bimodal distribution, like I already said, for sex, but the binary of gender, which highly correlates to the bimodal distribution for sex, which we already said, right? That binary is forced upon people, right?
I don't think any binary is really forced upon people.
Well, okay, that's I feel like a silly perspective, right? Because obviously uh there's different dress codes for men and women. There's different for the longest time, if you go to a school, you're supposed to wear a certain uniform if you're a woman at like a private school or a school for boys, right? There's literally certain things that society says this is what you're supposed to be doing. There's in the 1950s, women
Sure.
weren't allowed to have their own fucking bank accounts, right? And there was that was you were supposed to be in the home. You were supposed to be working in the home, and that is the binary being forced upon you based on what people perceive you as,
Okay.
right? So I guess what I'm saying is obviously this binary exists. Obviously, society generally has
To
people.
some extent.
Well, you agree the binary exists, right? Obviously,
To some extent it does as far as how society treats men and women differently.
oh, absolutely, right? I think it'd be completely silly not to say that. Obviously,
I don't mean it in a general sense. I just mean like there are a lot of things that men and
men
women
and women
are
are treated differently in society,
right.
absolutely. And well, I mean that's the big thing, right? So like people don't want to live where they're treated that way. They want to live where they're treated a different way, or they want to live where they look at themselves in the mirror and they're happy with what they see. So it's multifaceted, right? Like that's why a lot of people dress a certain way is because they like how it looks. They like the aesthetic. And then there's also the component where you want to be perceived a certain way because we're social creatures and we this societal aspect matters, right? So the person that is trans and goes through the trouble of changing their physical appearance to the extreme of taking hormones, to the extreme of getting surgeries. That is someone trying to live the way that they want to live and fit into the boxes easier. And I mean, you can have the perspective, well, they should just accept themselves, and that's fine. But you can say that about, I mean, basically, all it seems like your concern is you think surgeries are dangerous. And it's like, sure, yeah, but people get, again, BBLs.
It's not that I think that surgeries are just dangerous. I think that it's dangerous for you to live as something that you're not.
What does that mean?
To For a man to live as a woman is not good for him.
But we've already determined that the rules don't matter all the time, right? And you can
But it
live.
seems to not be, it's not, you can't separate gender from sex. You just can't.
Right. But okay, we had this conversation already, right? Where we said that there are people that don't want to live in either role. And then I asked if that was okay. And
Right, but
what did you say?
not when I'm saying, not when you're saying yes, you completely change your body with surgery and become the opposite sex. That is
Well,
not what I
pretend
mean.
pretend
I'm
why.
saying that if a
So you
girl
don't
wants
like
to be a
surgery.
construction worker, it doesn't matter to me because that's a different thing.
But what is the thing to you? I feel like you don't define it. You you act like it exists and it's important, but then anytime I push you on what is the role, you say, well, it doesn't have to be that. You know what I mean? So like
Because
where is it for
the
you?
thing is that humans are very complex. You can't just put a specific role on men, like all these things are masculine and all these things are
Yeah,
feminine. It just doesn't, I mean, it's a label, right? It's a scientific label. So
yeah.
who defines what is masculine and who defines what is feminine? The only way that as far as I understand, that those things are defined is by how likely it is for the male brain to pursue this versus the female brain to pursue that. That seems like the generality of like masculinity and femininity because it's the thing that they do by nature most commonly. That doesn't mean that like it's always that across the board.
So you're saying the difference between the gender of men and women is what you're more likely to want to do.
Seems to be the consensus.
I don't. I mean, I
Do you understand that male and female brains are sexually dimorphic?
yeah, and I mean, I also understand that if you study trans women's brains, they're more in line with cis women's brains. That's a thing, right?
Sure.
So, uh, so
But
that's to me that's a silly point to make,
more
right?
in line does not mean that they are.
More in line than
That
they are
means
with
it
men. So
means that there are
which more in line
differences.
with women, cis women
But
than cis men. So why would
the
you put them?
studies are kind of all over the place as far as uh looking at the brains of trans people and
Okay,
or
but I guess the brain is not my yeah whatever. Sure we can say it's debatable, but
also I mean even if it even if the brain looked a certain way, I don't know if that's something that's like an end all be all.
right. Okay, well, you're the one who brought up brain, so I was just telling you that you're not necessarily correct about that, right? So,
No, I'm saying that there's a difference between men and women's brains on the normal for 99% of people.
right, but again, I've agreed with you that there is a normal distribution. I
Sure.
know that there's normally people are one way or the other. That's why we have these categories in the first place.
Then how can you perceive gender roles as being constructed completely?
I didn't say they're constructed completely. I
Okay,
said there's a
fair
social
enough.
component. And what I'm but just because it's not in every case completely biological or completely social, I guess that my point is you need to do something with these people that are saying that they don't fit in your 99%, right? Which and I still don't know why we're using this number. I don't know if 99% is accurate or whatever. We'll keep using it
Okay.
because whatever. But I guess the point is, what do you do with the people that don't fit your box, fix your nice categories? Because it seems to me like whenever I push you on what are the roles of men and women, you don't give an answer,
There are generalities.
but you're okay with people being outside the generalities, right?
Sure.
Okay,
because
so what's
because
so what's the
people are
problem?
all the time.
So what is the problem with someone saying, "Hey, I'm gonna go in the other box. All right, peace out." You know what I
Because
mean?
they're not going in the other box by a gender role, they're going in the other box completely.
Why do
Like
you
they're completely changing their bodies, they're completely changing everything.
people completely change their bodies all the time? Again, I mean, you don't like
Do
that.
they?
You don't like that people do surgeries for cosmetic reasons, but why do you care so much?
Because I care about their well-being.
What is the all right, let's talk about that. What is the concern for you? What do you think is bad for them?
I don't think that that makes you I don't think that getting that surgery is necessarily going to make you happier or feel better about your life. But I think that if you find contentment for who you are, then it does. It's a actual genuine fix to the issue instead of trying to fix it cosmetically. Like a girl can get her butt and boobs done like 20 times in a row and still never be happy with the way that it looks.
So would you be okay? So would you be okay with someone who said that they wanted to live outside the gender binary and they said, but I'm not going to bother getting surgeries. I'm not going to do any of that. I'm not going to take hormones. I'm just going to live as if I'm more in the woman box. Would you be okay with that?
I don't, I think people do that all the time, but they don't need to, like, I guess, announce it to the world and be like, hey, this is what I'm doing. Cause I think it just happens. Like I said, there's masculine women and no one has a problem with that.
No, some people do.
I guess
Actually,
that's
a
true.
lot of people, a lot of people do, right?
Fair enough. And
Yeah,
people
I
have
mean,
problems with feminine women, feminine men too. But
a lot of
I don't,
problems.
I don't, I don't think there's an issue with that. I think that's just the way it is. It's how nature is. There are a lot of differences in people.
Okay, that's good. We're on the same page there. Um, that's good. Common ground. Sweet. Uh, yeah, we don't need any more conversation, honestly. This is solid. No, but like, uh, so we're on the same page that you can live however you want, and that's okay. Would you say that?
It's okay.
Let's say
It's okay for
don't get
me.
surgery.
It doesn't affect me, but I do have an opinion as far as like I have an opinion as far as like anyone lives their life in any particular way. Like
And
if
you
you
have a lot
just
of opinions
never
on how people should live their lives. Yeah, I know.
like if you never do cardio, I'll be like, yeah, that seems like a problem.
Yeah,
Like, you know what I'm saying? Like there's so many things that I could say that I have a problem with, but it doesn't mean that I feel like implementing cardio laws,
yeah,
you know?
yeah. So would you just you're okay with people living in different roles or living outside of a box. You're okay with that, but
Yeah.
you don't think it's good.
It depends on what you mean by outside of a box. That's
Uh,
like not specific at all.
living outside of the gender box that we've been talking about, I guess, or bucket. Sorry, we keep switching the word.
Um,
So
I think
yeah, I'll let you finish.
I think that generally when you are a man, that doing the masculine role is probably good for you. And if you're a woman, doing the feminine role is probably good for you. Because
Generally,
that's kind of how you're wired generally. But
generally, probably.
but there's always people that don't quite fit into, specific boxes. And I don't know. I don't fit in boxes in a lot of ways.
True. Yeah.
So I mean, I don't know. I don't have much of an opinion on how people choose to live their life, but again, if you want me to like point out an issue with like any particular lifestyle, I can find one.
Yeah. Well, okay. So you do say generally and probably, right?
Yeah, because I don't fully know the answer.
Yeah,
That'd be crazy to claim that I did.
that's good. Yeah, that would be crazy. Um, so I mean, it to me, it just seems like you think that in general people should be a certain way because you think that it's going to be better for them. Would you say that?
Sure.
Okay. So
Doesn't
I
doesn't
guess,
everybody think that to some extent?
yeah, well, I was about to say I agree with you.
Yeah.
So I think in general, people should do things that make them happy and do things that are healthy.
I don't
And
think making them happy is the same as healthy.
I think both are important though, right? Like you
There
want,
there are people who like want to get their balls stomped on because it makes them happy.
yeah, well, and you know what, honestly, that's not for me, but if it's for you, good for you.
I mean,
Um,
it's a free country. You can, but I would definitely recommend not to.
you would caution against it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't remember where this was going. Because you distracted me with that. I mean, it doesn't really sound like it sounds like your concern is more like you're worried that people are going to fall into social contagion and they're going to
I
uh
truly feel sorry for people who like they think this one way and then they go and get surgery or hormones or whatever and then they decide that that's not actually how they feel or who they are. But
yeah.
because of the way that society's been lately, they jump into these buckets, you know?
Do you feel sorry for people who feel absolutely shitty until they get those things done? Because you should.
I feel sorry for
It's
them. I
consistent.
feel sorry for them, but I don't think that gender affirming care, quote unquote, is going to ultimately make you happy and have a fulfilling life. I don't think that's the
I
answer.
I think that that's a generality, right? But I think that I would probably disagree based on what I've seen. I'm just gonna Google it because I don't have Jamie to look it up for me right now.
Right.
Um uh it is a gender affirming care. Um because what I've seen, the big argument for gender affirming care is less suicides, which to me is pretty important. Having more people live, and I would say that it's healthier to live than to die in most cases. Um, so I guess there, I need to pull up some studies, but I'm looking for some right now. Something that's like digestible for this conversation. But I've seen it quoted over and over, and I would say that my friends who got gender affirming care do feel better. That's why they do it and why they continue to do it. I actually watched.
I think that the stats would be leaning in your favor as far as the suicide rates before and slash after.
Yeah.
But you see the opposite as well. Like you see studies for the opposite, and that's the problem, is that there's so many of these things where people will cite a study on this and cite a study on that, and they'll have whatever political leaning that they want it to have, essentially, because there's many ways to do studies and there's many ways to interpret studies and there's many political backings for studies, and the best the best thing to have is like full meta-analysis on this. But I think that there is one, and I think that it does claim that there are less suicides for people who get gender affirming care. But
Okay, I just found a couple, but
what do you got?
this one's from the Journal of Adolescent Health Association. They surveyed 11,000 people, youths, and said that I'm looking for the actual number. Um, results. Um, GAHT. What is that? Gender affirming hormone therapy. Uh, use of GAHT was associated with lower odds of recent depression and seriously considering suicide compared to those who wanted gender affirming hormone therapy, but did not receive it. For youth under 18, it was associated with lower odds of recent depression and of past year suicide attempts. So actual suicide attempts. Um, I can send you this. Also, the article is, yeah, I'll just send it to you so you have it.
Sure.
But okay, so just anecdotally, the people I know appreciate the option to do that and they feel better. And I think as opposed as you are to cosmetic surgeries in general, the people I know that have gotten cosmetic surgeries like them, right? Like women I know who've gotten boob jobs are very happy with the fact that they have boobs that they appreciate now. Uh, and so I think that there's definitely
I think
something
it's
to,
sad that they couldn't appreciate themselves for who they were.
well, and you know what? I think it's great to learn to appreciate yourself, but also it would be foolish to deny the fact that women in particular are judged very heavily based on their appearance in society.
For
Uh,
sure.
and having
But
having
is it
small or large
but
tits is
who's
going to be
judging them for their appearance mostly?
absolutely both genders. You can say it if you can say that it's, women are more judgmental, sure, but also, every single man is a dog in general, and they're very judgmental of women's physical characteristics, and like, she has big boobs, so she has small boobs. That's a thought that runs through basically every straight guy's mind at some point, and it's
Well,
something that
in what manner? Like that you
judgmental
notice it?
manners all the time, right?
Oh,
Uh,
I'm not judgmental about that at all.
well, I mean, you're a great guy then. But
Thanks.
you know what I mean? It's like there's a clear I
I
think
am not
I think you could probably find studies about this where like is getting a boob job good for my mental health? I went to Google is getting a boob job, and the first thing that comes up is getting a boob job haram.
That's hilarious.
uh
It is haram.
uh I mean, this is just a clip from the first Google result, but over 99% of breast augmentation patients reported improvements in self-esteem. So, like, I mean, regardless of how you
Is
feel about,
self-esteem the most important thing?
it's certainly not a bad thing to have.
It's not. It's not. But
Okay, I
I
didn't
just
say.
I don't value I don't value happiness on the same level that most people do.
I know you don't. I think we've talked about this, but
Yeah.
you're not a normal person, right?
No.
Okay, so I think it is important to be happy, and I think that society's
I
better.
didn't say it wasn't important.
Okay,
I just don't think that it's
you
like
just don't
the
value.
end all be all. Like people are so they put all their eggs in the happy basket. Like that's all that matters.
Yeah, yeah, people do that. I don't think I'm not. I've never said that. I'm not saying now that it's a bad idea to work on improving your mental health and accepting yourself
Mhm.
other ways than just getting a physical change. But I
Mhm.
think that it would be foolish to say that a physical change is not ever okay either, or not a good idea. What if you got a crazy people get braces, right? Like because
Sure.
you everybody looks at everyone's smile, and that's an important thing, right? Like that's psychologically people are more likely to
It
accept
is now, but this is all like new, right? Like throughout history, we didn't have really ways of fixing any of these things. Like we couldn't
I mean,
really fix our teeth. We
I
couldn't
would
really
be
get bigger boobs if we wanted bigger boobs. We couldn't get gender affirming care if we wanted gender affirming care, but was all right.
right, but
Probably better. I think the
I
mental
don't know if
health is
we would.
actually pretty bad here.
Yeah, no, mental health is terrible in this country. But I guess I guess I wouldn't agree with your premise that everything was okay, right?
Yeah, yeah.
I don't think
Not completely. They're still stabbing each other and whatnot.
well, and I think that obviously you don't have a study on this, but I don't think that you're more likely to find a mate if you got nasty ass teeth, right? Like if you back in the day, like there's a
I don't
reason.
know if we could ever have a study on that. Are you talking
No,
about back then or now?
that's why I'm saying there's no study for that because it was,
Yeah.
you know, before we had braces and ways to take care of your teeth better. You were just less likely to be attractive to a mate if you had shitty teeth, right? And that's just how it
Yeah.
was. But now
Uh-huh.
we have options for people, and I don't think that's bad.
Yeah, I don't think it's bad, but I don't think it's the same.
What do you mean it's the same? Same as what?
I don't know. Like, well, there's some like that opens up a whole other jar of worms, I feel like, if I go into like dental health right now. But
Is it? Is you have a big dental health jar to talk about?
surprisingly, yeah.
All right.
Um,
That can be next debate.
yeah, we'll talk about dental health on the next one.
Just FYI,
But
I probably have 20 minutes left.
okay, so what is your most polarizing opinion on gender, would you say?
I don't know if I have a lot of polarizing opinions on it. I try to I try to be like open minded about the whole thing, right? I
Hmm.
I don't know. I mean, I guess certain things would polarize different groups differently.
Right,
But I mean, I think we're very in line that people should be have the freedom to do whatever they want in general, right? Like, you're
for
very
sure.
libertarian that way.
Libertarian. Yeah.
Yeah. And then I guess I kind of go further and I say not only should people have the freedom, but I'm going to treat them as if I'm going to treat them the way they want to be treated, right? And I'm not gonna say, you need to live a certain way because your biology says that you'll be better at it. I'm not gonna take that step because I don't think that a makes scientific sense, but I also think that it I think there's a lot of variables, right? Like it's more than just you were born with XY chromosomes, you must act this way. And I think that is a vast oversimplification of society, of people, of how people are. And I think that if someone wants to be trans, right? If someone goes through the trouble of getting surgery, living their life differently in a different role than what is traditionally assigned, I'm going to treat them the way they want to be treated because I think that that's completely valid, and I think that that's how they want to live. And I don't think that they're a worse person for it. I don't think that there's a um I don't think you could make an argument that it's unhealthy other than they're maybe more at risk medically, right? But we're at risk medically for a lot of our life choices, right? And sitting all day is bad for you. Smoking is bad for you. And I'm not going around every single person I know that smokes and sits at a desk telling them, "Hey, you're gonna, I don't like that you do that. You really need to live your life as God intended and stop smoking." It's like, yeah, sure, it's unhealthy to smoke or whatever, but you're living your life. You're happy. Like, do your thing. Like, so I
But
guess that's my perspective is if
are
someone
they always going to be happy?
is anyone always going to be happy?
I'm saying like there are certain life choices that you make that are definitely going to have consequences
Not
down the
exercising
road.
every day is going to make you more likely to have lots of problems.
Sure.
Uh, but and I'll tell people, it's a good idea to work out. It's a good idea to exercise, but also like,
But you won't tell them that it's probably a good idea to like not
well,
get
because
surgery.
well, no, because I again, I think that there are psychological benefits to. I
So
think I
you
think
think that
that
the
I'm
good
using.
outweighs the bad, essentially.
Yeah, I mean, I think that if even if it like, yeah, how do you weigh it, right? Because
Right.
uh a physical reaction to a surgery versus
Hmm.
feeling much better about yourself for the rest of your life, even if
Hmm.
it's 6 years shorter or whatever on average. I don't know. Uh, I would say that's a fair trade off. Like eating bacon is supposedly bad for you, but we don't have to get into that. But because I know you
Uh,
have a lot of opinions about eating meat. Um,
not bacon. I don't think bacon's
oh,
great for you.
okay. Well, there you go. So yeah, I mean, I'm still gonna keep eating it. It's tasty.
Hmm.
And it's okay if it shortens my life. I don't mind. I'm enjoying bacon. Um, but yeah, I guess there's a lot of things we do that aren't perfect for us. but they help us in other ways. They give us a sense of peace. They give us a sense of comfort, and that's okay. I mean, if we live our lives in complete discomfort and unhappiness, I don't care what you say. That's bad for you. That's stressful. And it's not productive for society either, right? For everyone to be stressed out and unhappy. And I think that trans people living the way that they view themselves is better for them. And I mean, according to studies, less likely to kill themselves. So that's a big one, right? That's
Yeah,
you're
you might
not
be right.
healthier if you're more likely to kill yourself.
You might be right. I think it might be too early to tell. Because a lot of this stuff is, exploding at this point. Like there's so many more people that are pursuing gender affirming care now than ever. And I don't know what that's going to look like in the future, but I personally don't feel great about it.
Yeah.
Um, I think last time you were on, you had mentioned something about something about the age at which you thought that it would be okay to have gender affirming surgery and or hormones or whatever that. Has your opinion like further developed on that, or
Um,
do you have a solidified opinion?
I'm not sure if I have a solidified opinion on a number, right? On an age. Um, I think, yeah, I don't know if I don't know how much I said last time or what I even thought last time. I would say now, I think that similarly to, I think I probably said this last time, similarly to how we gradually give children more responsibility as they get older. You know, you're allowed to go to the store by yourself and buy something, when you're 10. You couldn't do that when you were 6.
Sure.
I think as people, kids get older, they're more able to understand themselves and more able to make decisions. And we naturally trust people to make decisions. And I think that there's definitely a place for certain types of gender affirming care, especially with young people. And I don't think that I would say, I definitely wouldn't say, cut off a 5-year-old's dick because he said he wants to wear a dress. I wouldn't say that. Um,
I'm
although
happy that you would not say that.
although conservatives and traditional people have been fine with cutting off portions of your dick for years. But that's another conversation we don't need to have. Um, about circumcision, in case that wasn't clear to anyone listening or to you. Um, but yeah, I guess I would say that it's a conversation that it's individualistic, right? Like there's definitely going to be intersex kids. They're going to need surgery. Um,
Do they
and
need it?
well, I guess if you don't give someone, that's a question even amongst that community, right? Like
Yeah.
I'm not part of it, but there's some intersex people who have said, hey, I feel like they kind of screwed me up by doing this to me and not telling me, and I would have rather them gone the other way with the surgery, and that's a thing.
Right. Yeah.
But um, yeah, so I guess there's probably certain cases where it's like real obvious you developed, I don't know, incorrectly. Like there's probably more obvious cases than others, right? Where it's like,
Incorrectly. How dare you, Nathan?
yeah, well, I think God makes a lot of mistakes, is what I'm trying to say.
Okay.
If he's real, if she's real. I'm just trying to trigger the entire audience right now. What were we talking about? Yeah, I think maybe the closest I would get to saying something is like, I think that hormone blockers, from what I've seen, are not necessarily going to hurt somebody because you go off them and you develop, right? So it's blocking. It's not replacing hormones. So
It's
in my
not
opinion,
replacing, but there is studies that say that there is bone density lacking in
well,
the
okay,
spine from hormone blockers, as well as some spatial memory they've seen in animal studies. I
spatial
I can't
memory.
imagine spatial memory.
What does that
I
mean?
I think it has something to do with your ability to perceive space.
Uh,
Not like what's the term I'm looking for? Spatial awareness necessarily, but related. Um,
That's a
in any
weird.
case.
That would be a very strange side effect. But maybe
It
it's
would it would be, but I can't imagine like halting the halting the process of puberty could possibly be good for you.
yeah. I mean, I think that there obviously this is kind of new concepts, right? So I think that there needs to be studies on it, and I haven't looked at all the studies, but I, from what I've seen and what my intuition is, it seems to me that halting is not the most dangerous thing possible, especially for a kid that says, "I'm suicidal. If I start changing, I'm going to want to kill myself." So
How are you suicidal? Sorry. How are you suicidal when you're like 12? You don't even,
a lot of people are.
how do you even know what suicide is?
I
I mean,
mean,
I can
public
understand
school
how
is a
you might
nightmare for a
know,
lot of
but
people.
like,
You like, and well, and people are complicated, right? Like,
sure.
obviously, I've never really been suicidal except for like once, and it was a long time ago, and I was like 20. But I think kids do not are very poor mentally, and they're doing very badly. And I think that giving them an I think I read some. It's been a while since I read up on this, but I was reading, and there was definitely accounts of people who basically said, like, the moment I started going through puberty, I was like, no, 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 this is bad. Like, this is terrible. Like, I don't want to develop into a woman. I don't want to.
Well, yeah, it's a scary thing, but
Exactly.
that's what happens. You have to go through life. That's
Well,
part
that's
of
the thing,
life.
is it's apparently an option now, right? So,
I disagree.
okay. But I mean, I guess what I'm saying is, if you can do hormone blockers and you can stave off that and give the person time to think about it, it doesn't seem like I've seen, from what I've seen, which is not a lot, but what I've seen, it doesn't seem like there's a huge downside, right? Like, because you basically just,
What would be convincing enough to you as far as downsides to for you to oppose it?
um lots of studies and doctors, I guess, saying that this is way worse for kids than suicide
So it
risk.
has to be worse than death. That's what has to is
I
what
mean,
is needed to convince you.
isn't death pretty bad?
Yes, death is
I mean,
very bad. That's what I'm saying. What's worse than death?
so yeah, no, I guess what I'm saying is, like, you would need to have some. I would need to see studies that say, hey, this is not helping. This is not giving, and it would need to be like legitimate, like a lot of studies, not like from
Well, this one,
truth.net or
I have
something.
something for you for like, I guess to advocate for trans people is that if like males that don't go through puberty don't develop enough you know, genital tissue in order to make a like vagina with their, you know,
Oh yeah,
the
the
like the penis doesn't the penis doesn't develop enough if you put them on hormone blockers, so it's like much smaller, and then when they try to do surgery to invert it, it's very difficult.
they
So
did surgery on
I
it, right?
believe they had to take some flesh from other parts of the body. What did you say?
I was fucking around. Just ignore me.
Oh, okay. But that's like something too that's not really great.
So you think that trans people should be able to have genitalia that most closely matches what they want?
If you're going to go down this route, it and you want to use hormone blockers, it's not exactly the best idea, especially for males,
Not exactly the best idea, because
because then
the
you
surgeries
still have
later
a
will be harder, is what you're saying.
yeah, the surgery later is going to be harder. I'm trying to be on your team here.
No, I mean, sure, but I guess obviously I'm not trans, you're not trans. I'm saying maybe let the kids and the doctors and the parents say how they're feeling, rather than me saying, well, but your penis might develop better. You know what I mean? Like,
No,
okay,
it
okay.
absolutely will though. That's a fact.
No, no, I mean, yeah, but also, like, I'm not the one who's going to say, hey, this is the right decision for you at this time.
For sure.
Because, I mean,
But somebody
here's the
out there is
thing.
saying that.
If if you
Somebody is
go,
putting the authority to say, yes, you should do this, or yes, you shouldn't. There are
well,
doctors
and
that are
it's
saying,
people who, in my opinion, are much more qualified to make that decision, right? They are doctors and scientists and people who, I've studied what this does to the body, and psychologists and
Have
people.
they, or is it an experiment?
I mean, everything is an experiment.
No,
But we have more we have more research than we did 50 years ago, right?
sure.
And uh, yeah, I've said that I think that it's a fresh concept still, and there's room for growing to understand it. But my perspective, as far as this goes with young people, is hormone blockers are not the end of the world, and I think that it's fine, especially if this is going to help a kid be less likely to kill himself. So that to me is
But
the
they
big.
might want to kill themselves later when they have really poor spine density.
They might, but also I haven't seen that study. And
That's because we can't do it yet. That's what I'm saying.
so
Is that we're
wait, so
doing a lot of
you don't have the study, but you want to keep bringing it up.
I'm saying that we're literally doing all these things to kids, and then what happens in 10, 20 years from now? We don't know because there's no way for us to know that. It's an experiment.
I think that there is more research than either of us are aware of. I'll look into it.
I'm sure.
But
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, like I said at the start, this is just my intuition and what I've seen about it.
Yeah.
Uh, so I don't have a fully formed opinion, but my gut instinct is that it's better to go on hormone blockers than kill yourself. And I think you would
That's
agree
not
with that.
even a good that's a terrible argument. See, this is the problem with this whole trans ideology thing where it's like you have to accept this or we'll kill ourselves. Like the threat to kill themselves is on literally every single argument.
Well, I mean, it's a thing that happens.
What do you
So,
mean it happens? It's still a choice. It's still a choice for you to kill yourself.
yeah, but are there people don't want to kill themselves? Like it's not something that like
They don't
the
want to.
not, a healthy person doesn't want to kill themselves, right? Like,
Wow, yes. You're making a conclusion there, I think.
yeah, I mean, you do
A
want
healthy
to.
person doesn't want to kill themselves.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So what I'm saying is if if there's a way to stop that from happening, I'm okay with taking that way. And from what I've seen, there's minimal risk with hormone blockers. Blockers. I'm not talking about replacement. I'm talking about
The thing is
they,
that you
they
always have the choice to not kill yourself.
yeah, but
Whether or
you can
not
say
this
that
or
to
that happens in your life, you can
who
choose
kills
to
himself more
push
than any
through
other
that.
group is men, right? Like, isn't it like 5 times more men
As
kill
far as
themselves?
I understand, yeah, but
Okay, so
it might have to do with lethality, not attempts.
okay, but
Don't fact
why
check me.
why is yeah? I mean, I've seen that argument, but like
Yeah.
every alpha dude always brings this up, and like when we're talking about rules, is like the men are more likely to kill themselves, so men have it harder in life, or whatever. But wouldn't you just say they have the decision not to kill themselves? Like, I think
Yes, I would. Yeah.
I think that's a
They
very naive understanding of what causes someone to be suicidal.
I'm not saying that I'm
Like,
not
yeah,
saying
just
that
man up and don't do it is sure, but
that's not what I'm saying because obviously women kill themselves as well. I'm saying ultimately at the end of the day to kill yourself is your decision. But um I don't think that it's not a fair argument to constantly appeal to the emotions and be like, well, if we don't get to do what we want, we're killing ourselves.
I don't think anyone is
Like,
trying to like hold it over you that they're going to do something if you don't let them have their way. I think this
kind
is
of
a
seems that
personal.
way.
Well, it seems that way to you because you're reading into it, right? But
I
you're
don't think so.
someone killing themselves is not it's not something that affects you, fortunately or unfortunately, right? Is like that is something that they have to deal with and they have to live with. And so I'm not going to try to pass a law. I'm not going to try to stop someone from doing
You know,
hormone.
suicide's illegal.
Yeah, yeah. No, I'm talking about uh ways you can stave off the suicide, like hormone replacement or blockers or whatever. Um,
Hmm.
that's what I'm saying. So I'm not gonna try to make the call that we shouldn't have this option available to people. I'm not saying put every kid who questions their identity a little bit on hormone therapy. I think that, like I said, I think that there's a as you get older, you get more responsibility, and it's a conversation that every individual has to have,
The
right?
let's say that the stat that I had mentioned earlier is correct, the 60 to 90% one.
Which
Um,
one? What? But 69% of people do what?
they revert in dysmorphia.
69% of people who do what?
60 to 90% of children who experience dysmorphia in their adolescence essentially grow out of it.
Well, that's why even let's say that's true.
So,
Let's say
so
it's true.
this is what I'm saying. Let's say that this stat is right. If you are to put kids on hormone blockers, you're already doing more harm than good just by the statistic,
Why?
because you're putting more children on hormone blockers than would actually want to go through with full gender reassignment surgery.
Well, so say that your statistic is true. I don't know if it is, and um, I don't know if it is, but say it is. You're you're basically saying because in my opinion, the hormone blockers, the puberty blockers, are not nearly the same thing as a surgery, not nearly the same thing
No,
as
they're not. But
okay,
it's still going to affect you negatively.
yeah, but it's gonna so is again,
What do you
so
mean?
is
Yeah.
suicide, right? So like um and you keep saying don't the suicide is it's like them holding it over, but it's a legit thing that happens. It's not like people are making this up, right?
Watch your
People
kid
are
to make sure they don't commit suicide. Like how is a kid going to know how to kill himself when they're like 11? That's kind of
I think that you need
they'd be
to
pretty
I
creative.
think you need to read more about
I'm not
the
saying they can't.
depression, right? Because this is a real thing that like young people absolutely get depressed.
Sure.
No, I mean like it's real. Like
I
me,
understand that depression is
you and
real.
I
Yeah.
do not have these to worry about. But there's definitely young kids who at a young age have wanted to kill themselves. There's young kids who've been psychopaths, right? Like
Right.
the brain is complex. So it's like if you're 6 years old and you're talking about like killing your family, that's not a normal child either, right? So like the
Mm-hmm.
uh yeah, I think obviously the brain is complex, and just because you can't understand why an 11-year-old would want to kill themselves doesn't mean it doesn't happen.
I'm not saying I don't understand why they would want to necessarily, but just the when you are 11, you're not very competent in doing things, but also you're not very knowledgeable in doing things. So it's like it's much harder for 11-year-old to kill themselves than for a full grown adult, because obviously.
I mean, sure, that's an argument you can make, but
But that's not really the point of that I'm saying. The
no, and I
point
mean,
of what I'm saying is like if 69%, if 60 to 90% of
I think
people
69% is a good statistic. Since we're just making it up, we might as well use 69%.
even if it was, I'm not making it up, but if it was 69%, even then, you're still causing more of a problem than you're not, because you're
Well,
putting all
no,
of
no,
them on
no.
hormone blockers for no reason.
You're assuming that there's no benefits to the hormone blockers right now.
It would be beneficial for 40 to 10% of people.
So what if
So for all the other people, it's
no, wait.
negative. Therefore,
Let's say your stats are right. So
okay,
let's say there's a kid who's gonna revert after they do hormone blockers.
okay,
They're gonna like, hey, I changed my mind. I'm not a woman anymore.
okay.
Um,
Oh,
I don't know what the kids are saying these days. I'm
yeah.
not um, but let's say this happens. The person reverts. But in that period before they reverted, they absolutely would have wanted to kill themselves and they would have tried. Is it better that this kid did not kill himself because
I just don't think this is a good argument to be like
no, 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 no.
they're always going to commit
I didn't
suicide
say always.
if they don't get exactly what they want. That's insane.
I didn't say that. I said that this kid would.
There's no way for you to know that. That's the problem.
Well, I mean, again, go look at stats of kids who killed themselves that are trans.
No, I'm saying there's no way for you to know that they're going to commit suicide or not.
No, but
And their kids are not trans.
I sent you the article, right, of the benefits of gender affirming care for young people, right?
What is
And
young people though?
I mean, it says under 18 in the article. I didn't read the whole thing, but there's more than
Yeah,
one article you can
it's
find
a
about
very
this.
in-depth article. Say again.
I mean, there's more than one study on it, right? Like, so that's what I'm saying. Is that clearly there are people that are going to kill themselves, and they're less likely to if they get gender affirming care.
That's like super Calvinist of you to say that they're going to kill themselves, like they're predestined to kill themselves or something like that. That's wild.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just talking about statistics, right?
Sure.
Yeah. So I mean, if we can identify there's a benefit to, all right, I have 6 minutes, but 5 minutes, it just clicked over. We can identify there's a likelihood that there's a stronger likelihood you kill yourself if you don't have gender affirming care. Is that not something to consider then? Like if if we have a tool in our toolbox
It
to
depends
keep,
on the age range, I think, because I would have
okay,
to
I
I would
I
have
didn't,
to look into it more because I don't know because a
yeah,
lot of what we're talking about is like prepubescent, and I
I
can't.
didn't, yeah, I mean, I didn't say I have a specific age, right? I just said
Yeah,
that,
I
um
I would say sure that that's a factor you do consider,
okay, and it's a tool in
but
the toolbox to help someone.
what
Gender
the
affirming.
okay, that's more broad. Okay,
Right, of any type. No, we're letting the I've read before, like, part of gender affirming care could be just like letting the kid wear dresses, right, or whatever. It's
but I
like,
don't think that matters. Like I wore a dress when I was a kid.
I know you don't think it matters. You're trans. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Um, yeah, but I mean, yeah, I guess tool and toolbox could be puberty blockers. I think that that's very helpful. It could be helpful, and I think that it's we neither of us seem like we know enough to have a strong opinion about it, right? Because we don't have all the statistics and studies. And I think you're right that it is something that we haven't studied as much as we could, and we definitely need more studies. But
Yeah, when you're talking about hormone blockers, this is super new.
but
So
what I guess my big pushback would be like, all right, so this is, and then again, this my thing is more geared towards adults. That's my main concern, is how we're telling adults to live their lives and what we're trying to ban for adults and things like that. And
right.
what I see around me from especially the fundamentalist conservative Christian types, basically saying you're a perv if you if you decide to uh, take hormones and live life as a man, um, which is just patently not the case. Um, but yeah, I guess that's my main pushback, is about the treatment of adults. But I also think that, you know, I think that there's definitely room for a nuanced conversation on how kids process gender and what that means as you get older, and when it's okay for someone to go on things. And I think that we need more studies, and I think that it's silly to try to ban any tool in the toolbox that a doctor and a parent have to keep their kid from feeling depressed, right? So that's my thing. Even in the case of, if you want to go so far as to say, even in the case of like obvious intersex case, where it's like, all right, let this person do hormone replacement. If we make laws that say no, you can't, then that, I think that's silly, because you're gonna have someone whose body is doing all kinds of confusing things that are not what their body wants to be doing, because it's trying to do both or something, if you're in an intersex case. So it's like, I think there's no point in trying to legislate away options, I guess.
Yeah, I generally am a fan of less laws instead of more laws.
You would say fewer laws if you cared about the English language stuff.
It's true, but I don't.
Yeah, I know. I needed to talk with you. All right, I have 2 minutes left. Let's wrap this up.
Cool. Well, thanks for coming on and having the discussion. Not a lot of people want to have this type of discussion or are willing to publicly have a discussion on something that's polarizing.
Hashtag
But
cancel Nathan.
I don't think you're going to be the one canceled.
I don't think anyone's going to cancel you. You seem like you're a reasonable
I'm
guy.
I'm not popular enough to be canceled yet.
Not yet. Hopefully never.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it was good to talk. We reached some common ground.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't commit suicide. All right.
I won't. You neither, please. And get your teeth
Yes.
fixed. They look disgusting.
Yeah, they're it's pretty rough, being me.
Yeah. No. Anyway, yeah. Are you gonna post this anywhere? What's going on?
I will at some point. I gotta just cut the beginning off, and that's it.
Cool. Yeah.
And then I'll set it in.
Send me a link when you do.
Sure will.
All right.
Have a good
Nice
day.
talking to you, brother.